Jai Shri Radhe. Today is day 20 and Varta number 4 of 252 Vaishnava stories. Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Shri Krishna, Sabko Jai Shri Krishna, Shri Gosai Ji ki Jai Ho, Shri Vraja Dham ki Jai Ho. The story of Murari Das, a Suryodvij Brahmin from the east. Bhav Prakash. Murari Das is a devotee with a sattvic disposition. In the eternal Leela, his name is Mandakini, who manifests out of Vishakaji and is therefore the form of Vishakaji's divine loving mood. She is attached to the Lord's pastimes as a child. Mandakini is always engaged in the seva of Nanda Bhavan, and Sri Thakurji remains very pleased with her. She tells Sri Chandravali where and how to meet Sri Thakurji and is thus very dear to Sri Chandravali. Murari Das was born into a family of Suryodvij Brahmins in the east. He was only 6 when his parents died. He went to live with his uncle. His uncle used to teach him, and he gained some knowledge. When he was 15, he began to keep the company with one renunciate. He went to stay with him in Varanasi. He had no contact with anyone from home. His uncle and other relatives went searching for him but could not find him. They just sat down defeated. At the same time, Sri Gosaiji was living in Varanasi. Once Sri Gosaiji was bathing on the Manikarnika Ghat. Murari Das also came there to bathe. He only had to see Sri Gosaiji. Part 1. Narayan Das accepted Murari Das's suggestions and employed him as a servant within those guidelines. When they went together to the emperor's court, Murari Das, being so bright and effulgent, seemed to be the master and Narayan Das the servant. If there was anything that would normally take 12 hours to write, Murari Das would complete the task in a third of that time. Narayan Das and all the others were very surprised to see Murari Das's prowess. Narayan Das did not recognize Murari Das. Murari Das was responsible for the seva of that Swarupa Sri Balakrishna Lalji that Sri Gosaiji had granted to him. Sri Thakurji gave Murari Das his direct experience all the time. Sri Thakurji spoke directly to Murari Das and asked him for whatever he wanted. If Murari Das did not give him exactly what he wanted when he wanted it, then he would quarrel with Murari Das, who, seeing this, immediately gave Sri Balakrishna Lalji whatever he asked for. In this way, Murari Das tasted the nectar of the eternal Leela. Murari Das would get up 3 hours before sunrise and, after performing all his necessary ablutions, would bathe and cook, wake up Sri Balakrishna Lalji and then offer him his breakfast. He would go back into the kitchen, and then, after the stipulated amount of time, accept those offerings as prasad and take them out of the temple, then perform the ceremony of waving of the lights. He would then dress and adorn his Sri Thakurji and then offer him snacks for the period of his getting dressed. He then re-entered the kitchen and, having finished up there, accepted the snacks back as prasad and again performed the waving of lights around the Lord. He then, accompanying each stage of the seva with the appropriate food offerings, swung Sri Thakurji in his cradle, offered him his lunch, tidied up the resting area, sat and chanted the Lord's name, accepted that meal back as prasad, performed the arati, and then put the Lord to rest, placing there a fresh small container for snacks. After this, when Murari Das took prasad, got dressed, and then got ready to set off to go to work, Sri Thakurji would be right behind him. Murari Das gave his Lord lots of different toys and would say to him, "Today I will bring something nice back with me." Then Sri Thakurji would let go on Murari Das's of Murari Das's scarf. Only then could Murari Das lock the door and come outside. Sri Thakurji would put the chain on the door from the inside and start to play. In the evening when he came home, Murari Das would come to the door and shout to Sri Thakurji to open the door chain. he would come to the door and ask, "What have you brought for me?" Murari Das would tell him the names of all the fruits he had brought. Only then would Sri Thakurji open the door chain. Some days Murari Das would buy things and bring them home, but would hide them for a joke. When the Lord came to the door, he would ask the same questions. Murari Das ji would joke, "Oh my dear, today I did not get anything." Sri Thakurji would then say, "Oh well, then I should not open the door chain." Then Murari Das would stand outside and persuade Sri Thakurji to open the door by telling him the names of all the stuff he had really brought. When Murari Das entered, he would again lock the door and go into the courtyard, where Sri Thakurji would play fight with him and climb up on him. When Murari Das washed the fruits and presented them to Sri Thakurji, he would enjoy eating them. Bhav Prakash. Here the question arises, how come Murari Das offered these fruits to Sri Thakurji without first bathing? This is not the correct way of Sri Acharyaji's path. And why did Murari Das touch Sri Thakurji without first bathing? The answer given here is that the Lord appears in two forms, Sarvodarak and Bhaktodarak. They have been mentioned before in this story. Sri Thakurji is granting Murari Das the bliss of his Bhaktodarak form. In this case, there is no need to consider the formal rules of purity or aparas. The Lord in this form requires only love. Seeing the great love of Murari Das, the Lord manifested from his own private and personal form and came to play with Murari Das. Playing as a child, he granted Murari Das the experience of many great happinesses. Part 1 continued. Then Murari Das would bathe and cook. Then he would offer Sri Thakurji the evening preparations. He would clean up and purify the kitchen and pots, accept back the prasad, perform the arati ceremony and get Thakurji off to sleep. He would finish off all the service, partake of the prasad, prepare the offerings for the next day, put them ready in the kitchen and then go to sleep. This is how Murari Das served the Lord. In the evenings on his way home from the court, he would go to the shops and look for and buy ever fresh and new varieties of fruits and vegetables, etc., and bring them home. He never came home without bringing something for his Sri Thakurji. If on any particular day he could not find any nice fruit for the Uttapan Bhog, he would get some dried fruits or nuts from the grocer and bring them home with him. Bhav Prakash. Why? Because fruits and dried fruits are the essential in the Uttapan Seva. The Seva is offered in the mood of the forest ladies, the Pulindis. When Sri Thakurji awakes from his afternoon nap in the caves on Sri Govardhan, the Pulindis offer him flowers and fruit.